I know I said I was going to leave this over here on the table of disappointment, the tater helmet. But for the purposes of today's video, we're going to put it back up here. We'll leave the C- hat just because it looks so good sitting over there. 2022 college football season. ACC coaches on the hot seat. I've done a series of these, and I'm going to do all the all Power 5 conferences. I've done the SEC, did the SEC last week, and the Big Ten last week. So if you're interested in my thoughts on SEC or Big Ten head coaches that may find themselves out of a job by the time this college football season ends, click back a few videos, you'll find those. But up today, the ACC. And I'm not going to do these in any particular order. Really, these videos, they're called hot seat videos, and I do talk about coaches on the hot seat. But really, I run through every team and just kind of give you my opinion on the coach. And as I'm doing that, I tell you whether they're on the hot seat or not. Some are obvious. Some are really obvious. Okay, well, first we'll start here. There are several ACC programs heading into 2022 with brand new coaches, right? Clearly, they're not on the hot seat. There is no such thing as a first-year head coach on the hot seat. A first-year head coach is not getting fired, regardless of record, for anything that happens on the football field. In order to get fired as a first-year head coach, and in most cases a second-year head coach too, it has to be something non-football related, something off the field. You get caught doing something you're not supposed to do. So you start with the Miami Hurricanes, Mario Cristobal, not on the hot seat. Great hire, I think, for Miami, especially from a recruiting standpoint. And then on top of that, almost everybody he's brought in on the staff is an elite recruiter too. So first-year head coach, not on the hot seat. Going forward, the talent level is going to increase at Miami, period. I don't care what you think about Mario Cristobal as far as his ability to develop players or his in-game coaching style or his philosophies or schemes or whatever. You can have varying opinions there. There's no denying the guy's an elite-level recruiter, and he's brought in a lot of people on his staff who fall into that same category and are familiar with both the Miami area, Florida as a whole, and the Southeast in general, which is very important when it comes to recruiting. So Mario Cristobal is going to increase Miami's talent level. There's no question about that. I think it's a good hire. We'll see how it works out. He did good at Oregon. What did he win the division 3 years in a row? Won a couple of Pac-12 titles, I think. There are some question marks about Mario Cristobal. They were by far and away the overwhelming favorite to win the Pac-12 last year. And not only did they lose to Utah twice, they got blown out by Utah twice and lost on the road to one of the worst Stanford teams I've ever seen. So, there are no guarantees in the world of coaching hires. You can make what you think is the best hire, and it can fall flat on its face, or a team can go out and make a head-scratching hire and hit a home run. You never know. As of right now, I think the future is bright for Miami with Mario Cristobal. Who else has a new head coach? Oh, Virginia. Virginia has a new head coach, Tony Elliott from Clemson. Longtime assistant under Dabo Swinney, an offensive guy on Clemson's staff. So he stays in the ACC, travels a few hundred miles up the road, up the north, and takes the job at Virginia. So clearly he's not on the hot seat. Now, he doesn't have any head coaching experience, although he's got a ton of college coaching experience, no head coach experience. But he's very familiar with the ACC because Clemson's in the ACC. So in theory, he will be recruiting the same areas and same people that he was recruiting at Clemson. Now, Clemson can attract a higher caliber of player right now because they're a better overall program. But I think this is a pretty good hire for Virginia. Let's face it, Virginia is not on the top of very many elite coaches' wish lists in terms of destination jobs. It's going to be hard for somebody like Virginia to go out and make a quote-unquote home run hire as far as a proven winner somewhere, right? So, considering, or all things considered for Virginia, pretty good hire. Virginia Tech, they hired, the guy from Penn State? Brent Fry? I think it's Brent Fry. He was a linebackers coach at Penn State or something. Again, similar to the Tony Elliott thing. He's been a good college coach, never been a head coach, though. So, it's always a crapshoot when you make a coaching change. When you hire someone who's never been a head coach before, it's a little bit more of a crapshoot. Now, you take the team I'm a fan of, Georgia. Kirby Smart had never been a head coach before, and that's worked out pretty well. So you don't have to have been a head coach before somewhere else to have success at the college level, but there is more unknown about hiring a guy who's never been a head coach before. But both Virginia and Virginia Tech, in my opinion, desperately needed to make a change. Those coaches were way underperforming there at Virginia and Virginia Tech, so they definitely made the right decision. Miami getting rid of Manny Diaz, that remains to be seen. They didn't keep him very long. Now, I know he didn't do great, but they were red hot the end of last year. You know, and Mario Cristobal could have lost that team. The first half of Miami's season was terrible, awful. But they won 5 of their last 6 games with a backup quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke, who broke some ACC records when they put him in. So Miami finished the season red hot under Mario Cristobal. Not enough to save his job. They go with Manny Diaz. I think it's an upgrade. I'm not saying it's not. But I wouldn't have been shocked if Miami would have given Diaz another year. But they didn't. So there's your new coaches. Florida State, Mike Norvell. It's time to win some games, buddy. It's time to win some games. I am on the fence when it comes to Mike Norvell being on the hot seat or not. If you look just at his record so far at Florida State, yes, he would be on the hot seat. He's been there 3 years. Hasn't been good. Hasn't been good at all. The recruiting, there was a lot of hype around this past Florida State recruiting class because Travis Hunter was committed for so long. They lost him on National Signing Day to an FCS team, to an HBCU. They still had an okay class, but that hurt, losing him. The reason I'm on the fence, I don't know if Florida State, right now, one of the only advantages right now Florida State has over in-state rivals Florida and Miami is coaching consistency. And I do think coaching consistency is important. Now, not coaching consistency where you're consistently winning 5 games a year. That's not what I mean. But anytime you start over by changing, because you got to remember, when you change head coaches, you're not just changing head coaches. Head coaches want to hire their own staff. So when you change head coaches, you're changing everybody. From the coordinators to the position coaches to the analysts to the water boy to the strength and conditioning people, everyone's brand new. So it is like starting over. So it's not, it's not ideal. And when you look at the talent level between Florida State, Florida, and Miami, there's not a whole lot of separation. Florida State did beat Miami last year, but lose to a horrible Florida team. The only advantage Florida State has right now is coaching consistency with Mike Norvell because Florida and Miami are both starting over coaching-wise. I think Mike Norvell would have to have a really, really bad season in 2022 for Florida State to fire him, primarily for that reason. Right now, you're ahead of the curve, at least in terms of coaching consistency, philosophy, players' familiarity with the staff. You're ahead of Florida and Miami. And I know Florida's in the SEC, Miami's in the ACC. Why did you compare? Well, those are the 3 big in-state schools in Florida, and they fight over a lot of the same recruits, obviously. So, being the better of those 3 programs is very important. And I'm not saying Florida State is the better of those 3 right now. I'm saying it, coaching consistency is the one thing they have up on those 2 schools right now. And for that reason, I think as long as Florida State wins 7 or 8 games, they probably keep Mike Norvell. Now, if 4 or 5 wins, all bets are off the table. But I'm usually not on the fence. I make a habit of purposely not being on the fence. I make a stand. I have an opinion. I make a choice one way or the other, and I stick with it, and I stay with it, and I ride it out come hell or high water. I hate kind of being on the fence, but that's really where I am with Mike Norvell. I have not been impressed with with what he's done on the field, no question about it. I look at, if I'm Florida State administration, I'm looking around at what's going on at Florida and Miami, and I say, if we change coaches now, we're losing one of the only advantages and benefits we have over them, which is coaching consistency. So that's just sort of my thoughts on Florida State. Georgia Tech. Jeff Collins is gone after this year. There's nothing Georgia Tech can do to save Jeff Collins' job. Could they, if they go 9-3, 10-2, whatever, are they going to fire Jeff Collins? No. But they're not going 9-3 or 10-2. They're not making a bowl game. They're horrible. They are not only the worst team in the ACC, they're one of the worst teams in the entire Power 5. And, they lost their best player, Jahmyr Gibbs, to Alabama. He shows up on Alabama's campus, and immediately he's the best running back they have. And Alabama's loaded with potential NFL running backs. Jeff Collins has been an absolute disaster and a failure at Georgia Tech. The players aren't buying in. And you know what might be even worse? The fans aren't buying in. Even the Georgia Tech fans are tired of this guy. His personality, his attitude, his mentality, it just doesn't fit Georgia. It's just a bad fit. Who knows? Jeff Collins may go on to be a head coach somewhere else down the road and maybe have success. It's never going to happen for him at Georgia Tech. It's obvious. I broke my own rule. Last year was his second year. He's going into his third year. I thought they should have fired him after last year. Just an embarrassingly bad year for Georgia Tech. One of the worst years for Georgia Tech we've seen in a long, long time. And I think Georgia Tech should have pulled the trigger and went ahead and got rid of him. Now, instead, they kind of sat him down like a 2-year-old and forced him to make a bunch of staff changes. It's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. Georgia Tech is in for another horrendous season. I would be absolutely shocked if they even make a bowl game. And so, in my opinion, not only is Georgia Tech head coach Jeff Collins on the hot seat, he's fired. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Do they let him coach out the entire season? Do they fire him in November to get a head start on the coaching search? I don't know. But Georgia Tech will have a new coach in 2023, period. Clemson, Dabo, Swinney, clearly not on the hot seat. Clemson had a down year. Yeah, 10-3. 10-3. Like the last 6 or 7 years, Clemson is averaging 12 wins a year. They've won, 5 of the last 6 ACC titles? They made the playoffs, except for last year. How many years in a row? 2 national titles in the last 6 years? Dabo Swinney's not on the hot seat. He's not on the hot seat. Now, I have some concerns about Dabo Swinney, but my concerns are related to Dabo's mentality about name, image, likeness, and the transfer portal. I don't feel like Dabo is keeping up with the times. That's not something that's going to cost him his job this year. Clemson's going to have another good team this year. Their defense is going to be one of, if not the best in America. The defensive front's going to be the best. Their offense looked absolutely horrible in the spring game, and that is a concern because that was the issue last year. DJ Ukulele looked terrible. Cole or Cade, whatever the hell his name is, I really don't care. Klubnik. I don't think anybody would be surprised to see him become the starter at some point this season. I think the Ukulele will be given a chance early in the year. Clemson's got 3 cupcake games to start the season before they go on the road to play Wake Forest in week 4. So they got 3 weeks to figure it out. But no, so Dabo's not on the hot seat. He's not getting fired this year. My concern about Dabo Swinney would be 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road if he doesn't sort of embrace the changes in college football. And even then, I don't know if Clemson would fire him because of what he's done there. So he's not on the hot seat. Mack Brown, and some people say, Mack Brown's on the hot seat. Mack Brown is not on the hot seat. Yeah, North Carolina had a disappointing year last year, no doubt about it. Their expectations were through the roof. They were in the top 10 of every preseason poll. Sam Howell was a Heisman favorite heading into the season. And they were just one of the most inconsistent teams I have seen in years in college football. I think there was an 8 or a 9 game stretch during the season where they won, lost, lost, literally every other week. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Not a good year. Now, a lot of people have written North Carolina off for this year. That might be to Mack Brown's advantage. I think North Carolina is going to be better this year than they were last year, and definitely better this year than a lot of people think they're going to be. But Mack Brown is not on the hot seat. He's one of the most successful football coaches North Carolina has ever had, period. And he's still recruiting at a really high level. They're recruiting in the top 2, 3, 4 in the ACC every single year. So the talent level there is only increasing. Mack Brown is going to leave North Carolina when Mack Brown wants to leave North Carolina. I mean, this is his second time there. He was there before he coached at Texas. He left, goes to Texas, wins a natty, takes some time off, now comes back to North Carolina. This is his ride off into the sunset. That's what this is. Mack Brown is trying, and I think doing a pretty good job, of getting the North Carolina program to a point to where he can step down and leave it in really good hands for whoever takes North Carolina into the future. North Carolina's not firing Mack Brown this year, and in my opinion, they're never firing Mack Brown. Mack Brown is going to coach at North Carolina until he doesn't want to coach anymore. So, no, Mack Brown's not on the hot seat. Dave Durham at NC State, not on the hot seat. One of the better teams in the ACC last year, and poised to do it again this year. People are talking about NC State this year the way they talked about North Carolina last offseason. We'll see if NC State can live up to the hype. Now, he's been there forever, and I don't think he's ever won more than 9 games in a year, but this is NC State we're talking about here. You know, the expectations of a school, the sort of history and tradition of a school, those things factor into when and if a coach gets placed on the hot seat, right? I mean, the most extreme example, okay, let's fast forward some number of years, Nick Saban retires. Whoever they replace Nick Saban with comes in and 2 years in a row goes 3-9. Well, he's going to be fired immediately. If he goes 4-8, if he goes 5-7, if he goes 6-6 2 years in a row, fired immediately. This is Alabama. Nick Saban averaged 13 wins a year for 20 years, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You come in here, you can't make a bowl game, fired 2 years in. Now take a look at Virginia. They just got Tony Elliott, right? Virginia goes 4-8 this year. No one's going to bat an eye. 5-7. No one's going to bat an eye. 3-9 this year. No one's going to bat an eye. Next year, you go 5-7. No one's going to bat an eye. You're going to get a longer leash at places like that. That's sort of the situation with NC State. You're really going to fire Dave Durham because he can't win more than 9 games? Who are you going to bring in that can win 9 games other than him? So it's not like this guy's an all-world coach or anything. I mean, he's 9 wins against look, outside of Clemson, the ACC has been pretty bad since 2015. Florida State had their run in the early 2010s with Jimbo Fisher, but since he left, Clemson's been the only real elite team year after year in the ACC. You had a year here, and Pitt was good last year, Wake Forest was good last year, North Carolina was good a year or two, but it just they flipped back and forth. Clemson's been the only consistent good team. NC State, the best Durham can do is 9 wins. So I'm not trying to say he's an elite level head coach or anything, but no, he's not on the hot seat. Neither is Clawson at Wake Forest, who played in the ACC title game last year, right, against Pitt, losing to Pitt in the ACC title game. Offense put up 1,000 yards per game, 50 points per game, and guess what? They're going to do it again this coming year too. Now their offense is going to be terrible, but Wake Forest is an example of another school where, so what if it goes 8-4 this year? Oh my God. He took us to the ACC title game last year, and now we fall down to 8-4, run him out of town. No, it's just not going to happen. This is Wake Forest. This is Wake Forest. He could go 4-8 this year. He's not getting fired. So no, not on the hot seat. Again, not an elite level college football head coach, a good head coach, and a good fit for a school like Wake Forest, not on the hot seat. Duke, David Cutcliff. There's another guy been around college forever. But the last 3 or 4 years for Duke has been horrible. I feel like Cutcliff is still living off the reputation he developed. Was it like 2015 to 2017? Duke was winning 8, 9, 10 games a year. I mean, they were pretty good. Didn't even win the division one year during that stretch. The last 2 or 3 years have been horrible for Duke. Now, I think David Cutcliff is past his prime. I think Duke should probably move on. I don't think they are. I think they'll keep him. But I don't expect much from Duke this year or next year or the year after that. But again, Duke is one of those schools where there's just not a ton of football expectations. So a guy like Cutcliff, who had he won when Duke won a bowl game. What year was that? Might have been 2015 or 2016, somewhere around there. They won a bowl game. That was the first time they won a bowl game in 50 years. 50 years. They're not firing him. They're not firing Cutcliff. He's not on the hot seat. Virginia Tech already talked about 2 brand new coaches. Pitt, Narduzzi. Probably the most overrated coach in the ACC, in my opinion. Oh, but Louis won the ACC last year. Great. Miracle. Other than that, the guy's averaging 6 or 7 wins a year. I mean, he's not a good coach. We'll see what they do this year. They did bring in Keaton Slovis, and they still got some weapons on offense there. But so he's not on the hot seat. But, this idea that because Pitt won the ACC, somehow Pat Narduzzi is elevated to one of the top 10, 15, 20 coaches in college football. No, I could easily rattle off 20, probably 25 coaches better than Narduzzi. So, no, but he's not on the hot seat because they won the ACC last year. Syracuse, Dino Babers, hot seat. I'm surprised that guy's still around. Here's another one. Had one good year, wasn't it, a couple of years ago when they won 10 games? Actually, that might have been 4 or 5 years ago now. Beat Clemson that year or whatever. So, but every other year since then, horrible. Just horrible. Can't recruit. And that's another thing about Pitt that I forgot to mention. Lou, why are you talking about Narduzzi? It took him a while to get there, but now that he's got an ACC title, the program can really take off. Oh yeah, what did Pat Narduzzi do to capitalize on that ACC title? You know what he did? He went out and signed the worst recruiting class in the ACC. I mean, this guy can't recruit to save his life. Oh, well, it's Pitt. Well, then just get used to winning 6 or 7 games a year if you're not going to expect anything in terms of recruiting. You won the friggin' ACC title, and this guy can't go out and sign anybody. I think it was like 40th in America, the class. Dead last. No, it was worse than that. Anyway, dead last in the ACC, inexcusable. But Dino Babers, yes, on the hot seat. I think Syracuse probably should have moved on from this guy already. And I used to be pro Dino Babers. I used to like Dino Babers. It's not that I don't like him now, but my opinion of him as a head coach has fallen off drastically over the last few years. And again, Syracuse, I don't know why people keep getting mad when I say this about certain teams. You have to live in reality, okay? There are certain schools that just care more about football than other schools. That's not an insult or a put down. Look, there are some schools that care more about basketball. Look. Does Georgia care more about basketball than Duke? No. Does Duke care more about football than Georgia? No. There's just some schools that don't care as much. Syracuse is one of those schools, but it's time to move on from Dino Babers. Boston College, Halfley, a nothing burger. An absolute nothing burger. The guy's been there a couple of years. It's Boston College. They're not going to be very good in any given year, period. I used to have a saying about the ACC. I used to say the ACC is a bunch of 6-win teams. But some of them have to win 8 and 9 games a year because they play all the other 6-win teams. So somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. That's the epitome of teams like Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, NC State, even North Carolina to a certain extent. Bunch of 6 and 7-win teams that every once in a while win 8 or 9 because they're playing all the other 6-win teams. So Boston College not on the hot seat because they just don't care about football. Louisville, Scott Satterfield on the hot seat, in my opinion. Louisville has done nothing but go downhill for a while. They were winning 10 games 7, 8, 9 years ago. And they hired Bobby Petrino. He was winning 8 or 9 games. We know why he had to leave. You bring in Scott Satterfield. Well, he went 8 and 5 his first year, 4 and 7 his second year, 6 and 7 last year. Not good. Not good. Who remembers that Louisville versus Clemson game? Lamar Jackson versus, I guess it was it Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson? I can't even remember now. I guess it was Deshaun. I don't remember it. But what a game. What a game. That's the last time anybody watched a Louisville game. There's been no reason to watch one since then. Scott Satterfield's on the hot seat. Louisville has proven that they can win 8, 9, 10 games a year. You go 4 and 7, 6 and 7 in your second and third year after inheriting a team. Because remember, it's not like they fired Bobby Petrino because the team was falling apart. They fired Bobby Petrino because he was Bobby Petrino. So you inherit a team that was consistently winning 8, 9 games a year. You do that the first year with Bobby Petrino's players still on the team. But now, as we're starting to get into your players, you're winning 4 and 6 games a year. 4 and 7, 6 and 7, not good. I think Scott Satterfield's probably on the hot seat. I do not think he'll get fired this year. I don't think Louisville will be bad enough for him to get fired this year. But you inherit an 8, 9 win team, and 3 years in, you're winning 4 games a year, 5 games a year, 6 games a year. Yeah, you're on the hot seat. You're on the hot seat. So there you go. 23 minutes worth of discussion about the ACC coaches. I might be the only person on the internet that can talk for 24 minutes straight about ACC head coaches. What a waste of time.